Dr. Clendenning, welcome back to TD, baby. What's happening? How are you?
Good, man. How's the Michael Labersi today?
Awesome, brother. I'm just sort of been living on the road for the last month. It's great. Not having to be anywhere, not having to do anything, and just working from remote. Like, talk about a lifestyle gig. I have maximized that this year. I finally reached a point where I feel comfortable being able to be on the road for 3 weeks and not even looking back, which is fantastic. Which sort of brings me to the shutdown. I mean, I kind of want to open that up with you. Like, I'm the kind of guy, though, if I shut myself down for too long, I get real lazy, right? I get super lazy. I want to just hang out and just I can even see it something like in my kids, right? When they're out of routines and they're out of their training, it's almost like there's this balance of purposeful lethargy and then the sludge to try to get the engine rolling again. You're on a shutdown day, right? We were talking about that a little bit earlier. You're
Yeah,
shutting down.
yeah.
Oh, what are you doing, man?
So basically, like a shutdown day for me, it is like I like the purposeful lethargy. That's what it's going to be. I am going to shut down, and I am going to spend the day probably shooting my bow, which I have not gotten to spend a lot of time doing. A couple arrows here and there, but I'm going to spend a good long practice session doing that. Not, I mean, once I'm done doing the work that I'm actually going to do, I'm not going to keep
Uh-huh.
working. I'm actually just going to, do I might, if the wind stays down, I might go get on the boat and go fish. I'm just going to like shut down. It's more of a disconnect from the have to do stuff, not a full shutdown. I'm not going to like go horizontal on the couch and put Lord of the Rings on for 9 hours and sit there and drool.
Right.
That's more, I don't have the flu. That's what I do during the flu. This is it's just it's a disconnect day, right? It's a let the brain rest. It's a let the body rest. I'm going to quit. Am I going to quit moving? No, because I can't quit moving, and that's one of those like people are like, well, sure you can. You can sit around. I can rest a little bit, but if I stop moving, to Mike's point, it's really hard to get moving again. And it's one of those at 52 years old. Welcome to it. I could sit still. I could sit down and just stop moving for probably 3 months. Like I could. Like it's totally possible. I could just, I'm done, and say that I'm going to recover. The problem is I'm going to atrophy. Right? You're going to lose the ability to do something. Years ago, a friend of mine was talking about stairs. He said he will never live in a house without stairs. And this was an argument that him and my wife were having at the time. And my wife is totally against building a house with stairs because she's a physical therapist. And during her time as a PT, she has seen a lot of people that are not allowed to go home because their house has stairs if they get hurt to a certain degree. So that's an opinion that she has. Awesome. Totally get it. We live in ranch style as a result. But my buddy was talking about as soon as you stop doing stairs, you stop walking stairs all the time, all of a sudden you can't do stairs. Like you see it in people. You'll see them walk up to a staircase, put their hand on the rail, look up to the top of the stairs like this is going to suck.
I've been
Because
there.
they stuck, right? Yeah, we've all been there, but that's why I can't quit moving. But when I talk about a disconnect day and a shutdown day, I'm not doing complicated projects. I'm not doing, woodworking that requires math. I'm not doing scheduling, logistics, grocery lists. I'm not doing laundry. I'm not doing, any of those things. I'm going to do things that require me to be present in the moment, right? That
Right.
just require me to just shut the brain down from external onus and just be present, like enjoy being outside. Fishing is one of my favorites because it's cast by cast. I'm only focused on what I'm doing when that lure hits the water and I'm dragging it back. That's it. That's all I'm doing. When I'm shooting
You're
my
not
bow,
changing out the jig and you're not doing all that stuff
yeah,
or
well, I
changing out
do
the
all that,
lure.
but you are constantly in a very hyper focused state of nothing. Like that's the step that I'm
I
listening
think you
to.
can get that from laundry. I to this day,
There's
right?
people
Like
that can get that from laundry. I am not
there-
that person. That's a
let me walk you through the nonsense of my laundry. I need all my kids present for for laundry. I need them to be in earshot, or I at least need my oldest because he can disseminate between him and the middle one and tell me who's what. I to this day, I don't know whether I'm lazy mentally or I have a block, whatever. I sit there and I'm folding. I have to have one of the kids with me, A, to take the crap back to the room. But there's so much more, so much box, because my kids are all athletic, so there's so many clothes in the laundry, and they don't even have like remember old school hamper where you put your stuff in the hamper and then you take it over to the wash in my home. The wash machine is on the same floor, so everybody just throws their crap right in the wash machine. Like it's not even a thing. There's no separate storage bin. So laundry for me is a little bit stressful actually. But it does keep me present. I'm like, oh, I didn't know, you had this shirt. I didn't know, oh, so-and-so's getting big, right? So it takes me a minute to really do my laundry if I don't have one of my kids present, because again, I don't know. I don't know the difference. But I do agree with you, man. I do agree with these shutdown days. And I do agree with a little bit of moving. And I do agree with the old checking out, right? Like with burnout, and you can search the internet and get your 9 stereotypical things. The one thing though that I feel like I don't know yet that I probably should explore is when people want to sit there and just do purposeful breathing. There's this guy rolling around the internet who apparently taught Tony Robbins how to breathe. And he's selling a course, obviously, and that's his big deal. He taught Tony Robbins the breath work and everything else. And don't you ever wish sometimes, by the way, that you changed the industry like Tony Robbins did? I mean, you're so big and you're so influential that people leverage your name to sell their product. It's crazy. Anyway, I digress. But I've tried I like doing all this crazy breath work.
Well, here's the interesting thing about breath work.
It feels fake to me. Maybe I'm not doing enough, but it feels so phony to me.
Well, and it's supposed to. So breath work is interesting because breathing is a function of the body we don't have to think about, right? It is something that the brain controls all by itself. It's a standardized function it's a mode of operation, does not change, right? Your body breathes at a certain rate. If you get more active, it changes the way it breathes and the way it does it. It does it all automatically. Now, to actually physically forcibly breathe in a certain way requires a lot of mental agility, a lot of mental acuity. It forces you to do things. One of my favorites is circle breathing. Like I love to do the circle breathing thing, particularly when I get to a certain degree of my brain is overwhelmed. I'm the Darth Vader masked kid playing, flaming bagpipes. I get to that point. I love that image. You got to check it out on the internet. It's awesome. Makes me laugh every time I see it. But there's that moment. Circle breathing is literally you breathe in for 5 seconds, hold it for 5 seconds at the top, let it out for 5 seconds, hold it for 5 seconds at the bottom, breathe in for 5 seconds, and you're just doing this square, right? Called circle breathing. To me, I always see a square as I'm doing it. But it's an amazing tool. But because you have to override the body's basic habitual standard,
body's basic habitual standard.
just does. That is exactly how that works. And I mean, the same is true. Think about free divers. There's breath work specifically. Like there's these blue holes all over the ocean that these free divers go to, and they dive down this basically cable to a weight to see how deep they can go. And it's all about your ability to control your breath. It has nothing to do with anything else.
Crazy nervous system. I can hold my breath for a very long time, actually. I used to be a competitive swimmer, and the skill has never left me on how to create deep breath holding while underwater. Oh, so look, I checked it out. Breath work is not a total hoax. Many commercial claims, such as chronic illnesses or unlocking hidden bodily states, exaggerate simple physiological facts to expensive wellness marketing. All right, cool. Slow breathing significantly proven to reduce stress. Intense rapid techniques can cause hyperventilation. Sometimes it can get a high effect. So I guess these change in states due to tempo of breathing. Some people have expanded on this in marketing. But again, is it just maybe the ritualistic practice of something else, like you said, overriding your body's normal function, right? So I think maybe if you really go down the road, remember, sometimes less is more, right? You don't have to go to a $10,000 a day spa or something fancy where you're going to this euphoric experience. We're talking really, really dirt tactical stuff here on Total Disruption, without actually having to stretch out so much,
So
right?
here's a good one. So there's years and years ago, and it's one of my favorite Christmas movies, The Grinch, the one that Jim Carrey did, which is quite
Good
like,
movie.
I mean, talk about a
Smart guy.
pinnacle of acting. I mean, I don't want to say that's the greatest thing he ever did, but man, was it impressive of how he embodied what it was. But there's an
Yeah.
interview that he does about talking about being in the Grinch suit because it was made of yak hair. And it was so incredibly itchy and uncomfortable for him to stay in character and stay in that space. And I'm not saying to do this, but I want to be clear on what he was having to do to set himself up. He was having, and I'm trying to remember what it's called exactly. He would have to punch himself in the leg and give himself a Charlie horse because he'd have to create a different pain that was greater than the pain he was in order to focus on what he needed to do. Now, I'm not saying it was a good idea. This is straight up scary method acting stuff, and he is an unbelievably talented individual and all the things that he did. But in that particular one, he wanted to bring such an incredible character to the screen. He was willing to endure wicked discomfort, for one, and then pretty heavy pain in order to endure that discomfort. So I'm not saying you need to
Okay.
go to that extreme, but it's a practiced thing. Like it is a practice thing that he had to do in that. And I know that's a little bit off tangent, but when you think about, well, the breath work is really hard and it's inconvenient. I want you to think about every time that you'd have to punch yourself. Is that more inconvenient to reset your state? Yeah, probably. I don't think I want to be doing that. But it's a great
And
tool, man, and it's a great tool
real,
for
real
those
quick
shutdown days.
for those people that don't know what a yak is, it's a long-haired ox from Tibet. Origins are Tibet, like yak hair. This guy
Yep,
with the
yeah,
yak
it
hair.
was, great. One of the best pieces of costume work I've ever seen. I mean, that was just
Who
such an
decided
amazing.
to design? Who designs a costume with yak hair?
I don't know who the costume designers were for the Grinch, but they were brilliant and cruel all at the same time. So I think I'd have rather been a
And,
Who than the Grinch at that point. But and
that's
we're
not the
nowhere
first
near
time I've heard
Christmas,
about that.
guys. But yeah, I was just thinking about that. From a method acting standpoint, think about your favorite actors, what they have to do to get in character. Right? There's incredible amounts of focus. There's a new movie coming out with Tom Cruise where he's talking about
I love Tom Cruise.
it required him. He just did an interview on it, and he said it is requiring him 40 years of training to be able to do this role. So he is attributing
Mm-hmm.
his entire career, everything he's ever done in his career, to be able to play this role. He was not ready for it until now. It took him. Tom Cruise is, by all accounts, an unbelievably talented individual in every movie that he's ever done. And he's saying it took him 40 years to prepare to do this role. So think about that when you're like, man, that's going to be really hard to do tomorrow. I got 3 hours worth of work to do. Tom Cruise feels that it took him 40 years to get ready to do this one particular role and what he had to do to get into the character of that role. That's what you're
Right.
doing with some of this. Really think about that. Like you as a human being, I'm not saying be somebody else. Who are you as a character? And what does the external world see you as? It's okay to think this way. What do they see you as? Who are you? What do you have to do to be that person? What do you got to do to get into that character? You got to do breath work. Do you have to do various meditations? Do you need to sit down and read your scriptures? Do you need to go to church, synagogue, mosque, wherever? Where do you need to go? What do you need to do so that you can put on that costume of who you are supposed to be, and or take off the costume of who you're faking it? Right, same kind of rules. So that's
Thank you,
that, right. Fake it till you make it. Man, I've heard that so many times. That one drives me bananas, but there's some
Why? It worked
reality
for
in
me.
it. Works like but I think it gets taken out of context, and we're way off tangent on this one, but I think that particular phrase sometimes gets taken out of context.
Of course it
Where
does.
Yeah, I think I see the people that are absolutely doing it, right? The fake it till you make it thing, and they unfortunately appear fake, right? Because they're not practicing, they're not prepping their game before they're going to go out there and show up. You see it in real estate agents all the time. Is they go out and practice on clients, and they just fail, 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 fail. We don't practice on clients. Like that's a terrible idea, regardless of what sales industry you're in. I'm using real estate as the example just because it's an industry I know very, very well. But we do not practice on clients. The same is true. Like there's a Minnesota State archery tournament coming up next weekend, first and second. I'm not going to shoot it. Like I'm going to miss this state tournament. I love shooting 3D. It's one of my favorite things to do. I'm not going to go shoot this tournament because I'm not prepared for it. I am not ready for it. Plain and simple. I would be going out and I would be practicing at the tournament. So am I going to be happy with the result? No, I am
Right, but
not going to be happy.
you could reframe that and say, "Hey, I'm using this tournament as my kickoff to other tournaments."
You could use
You can
that
always
as
do
a
that.
kickoff for the other tournaments. Yeah. I mean, currently I'm not planning on shooting it because one, physically I'm not in the shape I need to be to shoot that tournament to the best of my ability, and I know that. Simply because I have not shot the amount of arrows I need to shoot. It's a decision, right? It's just my choice and where I'm doing it. Could I go shoot this tournament? You bet. Am I still probably going to place top 10 in that tournament? You bet. Would it be a half-ass effort for me to go do it? Yes, it would.
All right.
100%. I mean, and,
Well, I'm
and I'm
glad you're
still,
setting that one out.
yeah, I'm just choosing not to participate in that one, and that's okay. And I'm all right
So,
with it because I won't be happy with my performance, and then I'm going to bitch about it for the rest of the year. And Mike's going to have to hear about it. He doesn't want to. No.
I don't mind hearing about it. I mean, I'll listen, pretend I care, and then we'll move on to the next
See,
topic.
there you go.
So listen, I wanted to come back at something when you were talking about Jim Carrey and famous people and doing what they got to do. Here's a couple of things. There's 2 points I want to bring up. The first point is people that are willing to go beyond and do extraordinary things. And when you can go beyond and do extraordinary things, you're going to get extraordinary results. And if you wonder why certain folks are more quote unquote successful in certain areas, they've just simply worked harder and created better solutions, and then they've been in the way of opportunity at the time they were working really hard or working really smart or whatever the adjective may be where you're purposefully involved. Now, let's go back to a celebrity that I respect a lot from this one perspective, George Clooney. And George Clooney had a very, very severe dura tear, which is the tissue wrapped around your spine during a stunt while filming in '05. And he had to do some corrective surgery, cognitive reframing, and therapy rather than relying on heavy narcotics. This dude was like leaking spinal fluid out of his nose. I mean, that's pretty severe. When you leak spinal fluid, it's a pretty severe thing. So what this guy had to do is surgeries, obviously, and then he had to basically mentally adjust his threshold of what pain really is. And I've heard him talk about it in an interview. I think it was on YouTube or something. This is so long ago, '05 this happened. And we were talking about it, 16 years ago now, 10 years ago, 11 years
21.
ago. 21. No, hold on.
05?
Years ago. Sorry.
Yeah, 21 years ago.
So, maybe the injury happened in 20 years ago. So let's say it happened like 18 with all the rehab and all that stuff. But he was talking about being out of it. And he said he went to a pain management specialist because he didn't want to do pain. And I'm a big fan of this. You know me, I've been through some intense things in my life. And that reframing really helps. And we talked about it a little bit with your bow competition there. When you take a look at and you can reframe your expectations. There's been plenty of times I've gone into different speaking events, different things like a comic going into something to rehearse, hey, look, I'm going to go in this smaller comedy club and try to go, kill it on new material, right? We've talked about this before. You don't want to reframe for this competition because in your mind, you have this competition in high regard. So you don't want to reframe and go shoot this bow competition. which is pretty impressive. I probably would just go half-ass it myself, but that's what makes us both different. I'd enter into the thing going, yeah, you know what? Been a while, but this is my best way to get the rust off. Because I'll take it back to baseball, right? You can do 1,000 cage reps and you can do 1,000 BPs from different people, but until you're in a game, and they call them live ABs and live at bats, being in a situation during a game, being under a certain set of fatigue, being in that mental fatigue, reading body language, it's all a skill that gets honed the deeper you get into doing these things. And sometimes it's probably no fun, right? Like I may say, hey, I don't want to be that guy who's shaking it off because I'm doing terrible because I know I'm not prepared and I probably shouldn't have came in anyway and done this.
Yeah, and I've
But
done the tournament game long enough. I've done it. I've been shooting tournaments for 30 plus years, and I know where I need to be performance wise to do it, and
okay,
what I need to do. And there's yes, I could. If it was just a normal, if it wasn't a state championship tournament, right? If this was just hey, we've got a club 3D shoot, you bet I'd go shoot it that weekend, no problems, because that is a tune-up game. That is what the practice is for the bigger tournaments. But I made decisions this year. One of them was build the new house, and that took absolute priority over my training. Still training, but more of a just keeping muscles doing what they're doing. I got a buddy of mine that is sending me pictures, and I know he's shooting better than I am right now. He just went and get himself a new bow, and he's very proud of the way that he's shooting. He's shooting beautifully. He's shooting better than I am right now, and I know that, and that's okay. But it doesn't take me. If I had 2 weeks of just straight prep time to do it, to get ready to go shoot this tournament, I'd go shoot it. But I don't, and that's okay. So I'm not going to go shoot this one. So it's a decision. And that's all it is. And that's all I'm using it as
well,
the example on this one. I'm not saying, well, I'm bowing out of it because I don't want to lose. No, that's not what it is. I just know I'm not prepared for this particular tournament. And that's okay.
let's
So I'm
expand on
just,
that for a second. Let's expand on that for a second because I used to be the kind of guy that would just sort of wing it. And on a low scale, really low scale, like a one-on-one scale or a 1-to-2 scale, you kind of wing it and get away with it. But if you're trying to do anything different, anything bigger than you are, really the prep time is really what makes everything happen. Think about a rock show. When you go to a show, there's got big screens, they got lights, they got blinking everything, and then you go see some sort of act at a bar, which again, the two are totally different. If you're trying to be entertaining, I know the music has to be great, I know everything has to be great, but that whole moving around the stage, dressing the part, doing all the things, getting all that dialed in. These higher level shows like Taylor Swift, when she's doing her great, it's a real grandiose production. Listen, you could put a mic in that woman's hand and you could put a plastic solo cup in her hand and she could sing into it and would sound better than everybody else. But she doesn't do that. She's doing extraordinary things. God love this woman. She's doing extraordinary things. And that extraordinary things takes extraordinary amount of prep. Yeah, it's natural to her and she's in rhythm and it makes sense to everybody. But again, most people don't want to do it. I also did a little, because I had no idea what the hell a 3D archery thing is. And it says here in the internet, now, again, this is just my clarity here. It's a form of target archery where participants shoot arrows at life-size three-dimensional foam models of animals or creatures along outdoor hiking trails, and it simulates real-life hunting scenarios. So how does that work? Like, I don't know, we're kind of running low on time, but this sort of stuff fascinates me.
no,
Do these people
pretty
just
simple
like,
explanation. Most tournaments are going to be 40 targets over 2 days. So you're going to shoot 40 targets one day, 40 targets the next day. It's over a trail system. It's going to be a couple miles worth of hiking that you're going to need to do. They're going to be at unmarked yardages, so just random distances, anywhere from feet away to 65 yards away, thereabouts. Sometimes there's a for fun target out there at 120 or something weird, but they're unmarked, so you don't know. You have to guess the yardage, and then you have to know where the scoring rings. And there's, for all the layman's in it, usually there's a little tiny ring that's worth 12. There's a slightly bigger one that's worth 10. and a bigger ring that's about football size for the most part, worth 8, and most of the body's worth 5, and then a miss is a miss. You get 1 arrow. You walk up to the target, you get to shoot 1 arrow at that particular target, and what you score is what you score. So ultimately, at the end of the day, if you were awesome and epic and you shot all 12s, 480 is your best score that you can get. Most people are going to shoot like the pros and the classes that I shoot in, 410s, 415s, 420s is typically where we land. If you're breaking even at 400, you're doing pretty well, but you're going to fall out of the top 10. So and you shoot in groups of your peers. It's a lot of fun. It's something that I really enjoy doing, and it requires a bucket load of mental presence.
Well, let's leave everybody on that. We are out of time, man. So listen, everybody, total-disruption.com. For Dr. Jay Clendenning, I'm Mike Libersi. It is your turn to disrupt. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.